guys, and welcome to another weekly vlog, and also happy Star Wars Day. Today is May the 4th, so I'm wearing my Star Wars yearbook t-shirt, which I absolutely love because it's just so cute, but besides the point. This is the new weekly reading vlog. Today is Monday, and I feel like I have literally the whole world at my feet because for the first time in ages, I'm not taking part in like any major readathons and I don't have a huge TBR. I do have a few books I want to read in May, but I'm not reading them for super specific prompts or anything. So I feel like I've got like all of the choices in the world and I kind of can't decide what I want to read because I'm so indecisive, and it's been so long since I've been reading just freely and not doing it for a readathon that I kind of just have forgotten how to pick books just because I want to read them. So I've narrowed it down to 3 books that I'm planning on reading at some point in May, and I'm trying to decide which one to start with today. So first up we have The Gracier by Kim Lidgett, which I got very recently as a gift from my friend Molly, which I'm super excited to read. I've then got Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, which has been on my shelf for quite a while and has just been in my mind as a book I want to get to in a series I want to start for ages. And then finally we have A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin, which is obviously the 4th book in the Game of Thrones series, I think, and the next one that I need to get to in my reading of A Song of Ice and Fire, but I haven't picked up a Game of Thrones book in ages, so I'm looking forward to hopefully getting back into it in May. Funnily enough, May last year was when I actually started reading the series for the first time, so it seems like a nice time to get back into it. So, because I'm so indecisive, what I have done is I've gotten myself 3 pens. Obviously I have a red one which I have assigned to The Gracier, a black one which I've assigned to A Feast for Crows, and then a green one because I didn't have any blue lids that I've assigned to Truly Devious. I'm going to hand these to Jay now and then pick one, and whichever pen I pick out is the book I'm going to read because this is literally the level that we're at now in terms of how indecisive I am. So,
1 second.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay. I didn't see them. Just hold it up so the camera can see it.
Okay, good luck. Looking and sneaking look. Okay, here's the 3 pens.
Green, which means Truly Devious. Very exciting. I'm hoping to really enjoy this one because this is part of a trilogy, and the whole trilogy is out now, which I love because it means if I enjoy it I can get straight onto the other books. Well, I would have to order them, but I can get straight onto them essentially quite soon after finishing this one. So I'll be starting this one today, but because like I said it is Star Wars Day, we are having a little bit of a movie marathon, but I'm not like going to be fully watching them, so they'll kind of be on in the background and I'll be doing some reading and editing and other fun stuff as well. So let's do it. The weather right now is so all over the place, it's kind of ridiculous. Obviously, like I said, it's the beginning of May, so we are like well into spring by now, but the weather is just not really reflective of that whatsoever. It's been like super sunny, heat wave, shorts, yoga in the garden kind of weather for like quite a while, and then all of a sudden it just drops and it's like today is super rainy, really cold and gloomy, and I'm actually drinking hot chocolate from my favourite Christmas mug, and that is literally how much the weather has changed. So it's kind of wild, but I'm having a pretty good day today because I feel like it's nice to have that balance, and like when the weather is really bright and sunny I feel a lot more motivated to go out and do stuff, which is great, but obviously then you can kind of like go a little bit too hard and do so much that you kind of tire yourself out. So I feel like when you have these days where the weather kind of like tells you to chill out a little bit, it can be really nice, and you have that like balance of having really like motivated and productive days, and then days where you can kind of just take a little bit more time for yourself to just like relax and unwind. And I feel like that's one of the lessons I've been learning most from my yoga teacher training, not specifically in relation to staying at home and drinking hot chocolate, but just in terms of finding that balance in everything and how you shouldn't sort of go too far into one side of anything, and that you need to have that sort of equilibrium and that balance. And I feel like that's a lesson that even if you have absolutely no interest whatsoever in doing any like physical yoga practice, you can really apply that to your life and just try and find a little bit more balance. And just like one of the proverbs, or basically like a thing in Sanskrit, is called Steha Sukham Asanam, which basically just means that every single thing that you do in yoga should have that balance of effort and ease. And I just love that so much because I think that is a really good sort of like protocol for life and something that will keep you happy, motivated, productive, but also like really calm and without having to sort of go too hard or sort of fall into that kind of like workaholic status, which I think a lot of people do at the moment, is kind of like focus too much on productivity. And I think you need the effort and the work and the sort of productivity side, but you also need to take that time to relax and have some ease. And I just absolutely love that. So there's my little yoga philosophy lesson for the day. And I also thought I would tell you about this hot chocolate recipe because it is so good, and that is actually the main reason I sat down to talk to you just now, and I just went off on a yoga tangent, so sorry about that. But this is such a good hot chocolate, and it's actually also a healthy hot chocolate, so don't be put off by that because it does taste delicious, but it is all like plant-based, obviously, like healthy ingredients. So basically for this one I just used raw cacao powder and I popped in like a couple of teaspoons, but obviously you could just decide how chocolatey you want it to be. I then popped in about a teaspoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of ginger, just to add in some like warming spices. And then I added in maple syrup, about a tablespoon's worth, and just mixed that up together until it was like a smooth paste. And then I topped up about half of the mug with boiling water, which just made it into like a hot chocolate that was just smooth. And then the rest of it was oat milk, and I just topped that up, which makes it so creamy. I did my oat milk in the milk frother, but you don't have to do that. I just did that because I wanted to feel fancy. But basically oat milk just makes the creamiest and most luxurious like plant-based hot drinks, especially in hot chocolate. It is so good. But to be honest, oat milk is just the superior plant-based milk in general, so I'd highly recommend getting that if you don't use it already. And yeah, it's just so warming, so lovely, and I feel very festive drinking this one, even though it is the middle of May and I really don't know why I'm trying to drink Christmas drinks, but I'm loving it. The weather is really like cold and gloomy, so it just feels like Christmas hot chocolate kind of weather. So that's what I'm doing basically, and I'm having a great time. I am actually teaching a yoga class later on this afternoon to some friends, and that should be really fun. I'm doing that at about 4:30. But until then, I'm just going to kind of relax and start reading Truly Devious, so I'll keep you updated with my thoughts on that, of course. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy this hot chocolate and go back in the living room where Jay and his little sister are watching, I think, Attack of the Clones, so we'll see how far they're through that. Ruby. 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 Wave your hands in the air if you like staying at home for the day. Woo! Wave your hands in the air if you like hot chocolate. Woo! You don't like hot chocolate, you can't eat it. You're a dog. Silly. I've really recently discovered that she does actually like almond butter and jam on toast though, so that's a fun fact about Ruby. Right? Good afternoon everyone, thank you so much for virtually joining me again for another yoga session. For today's class we're going to be starting in a seated meditation. You can just sit either with your legs crossed or in any other seated position that's comfortable for you, just ensuring that you're really extending through the upper body with a nice straight strong spine. Head is reaching up through the crown of the head and the chin is nice and parallel with the mat. And then just taking a moment to either close the eyes or soften the gaze and just bring your attention to the present moment. Noticing the connection of your lower body with the mat as the upper body extends and you take up space, expanding through the shoulders, letting the chest shine forwards, and just bring the attention to the breath. Happy Tuesday guys, and I'm not going to lie to you, I actually managed to do a grand total of about one chapter, oh that is upside down, brilliant, one chapter of Truly Devious yesterday, so it wasn't a particularly splendid reading day, but I'm putting that down to the fact that we started watching The Mandalorian. So I had intended to just read while Star Wars was on in the background, and I thought because it was all films I'd seen before, I could just kind of have them on in the background and then just like read and put most of my attention on the book. But instead we actually ended up watching The Mandalorian because we got the Disney Plus free trial, and because it was new and because Baby Yoda is so cute, I just couldn't help myself, so I didn't really end up doing much reading. But today it's another equally very gloomy day as we had yesterday, so I'm pretty much just planning to sit inside. I've got a yoga class at 1:15, and then other than that I don't really have any other plans, so I'm just about to go and do some baking actually, because Since we've been on lockdown, I've pretty much been doing like at least one batch of cookies every single week, and I am loving it. I'm very gradually making my cookie recipe literally like the best cookies in the whole world. I mean, my cookies are pretty good anyway, but every week I feel like they're getting better. So I'm gonna make some cookies, then pretty much sit down, get a cup of tea and do some reading. Okay, so morning coffee has been secured, so let's get into our chat. So my first thought that I had whilst I was making spilt coffee on myself. Ow. Well, my first thought now is that hot coffee really hurts. Ouch. My actual first thought I had whilst I was making this delicious but extremely hot coffee is that how satisfying is it when you get to break the seal of a new jar of coffee? In my opinion, that is like up there with one of the most like simple but satisfying things you can do ever. My next thought is that I can't believe how many years of my life I spent thinking that I did not like black coffee. And actually that I didn't really drink coffee at all very much, because I would have it sometimes when I would go out for like a coffee in like a cafe, but obviously because there's so much like creamy plant-based milk and sugar in those coffees that I just would always end up feeling really sick, so I'd usually just stick to tea. But then recently Jay and I started drinking black coffee on a morning because we were trying out intermittent fasting, which I may end up doing another separate video on if you are interested in hearing about my experiences with that, because it's going quite well. But besides the point, we started drinking black coffee and we were both so surprised by how much we enjoyed it, because we are both massive sugar fiends and we would put so much sugar in our tea and coffee. But actually we're both loving black coffee, especially for me when I have this Little's vanilla one, because it's not sweet, but it does just add like a little bit of an extra depth of flavour, so I've really been enjoying that. I then also just wanted to share that I'm basically like just very happy and proud of this channel at the moment. Like I'm happy with everything that's going up on here and just happy with like this little community I've built. I recently hit 1,500 subscribers, which I just think is so crazy, and honestly I'm just so happy because I love making these videos and I love chatting to everyone in the comments, and obviously I've made some incredible friends through this channel, and I just think it's so amazing when obviously like subscriber counts increase. It's just so exciting just because I love making the videos so much and put so much effort into them that I'm just like so happy when other people enjoy them as well and want to get involved and enjoy the content that I'm putting out. So I'm just basically very happy and proud, and I do feel feel like being on lockdown recently has really been a good thing in terms of this channel at least, because I've had so much more time and like just freedom to put all of my effort into these videos and everything, and I've just been loving it. So I just kind of wanted to share that. And if you've got anything booktube, YouTube or elsewhere related that you're proud of, let me know in the comments down below, because I think obviously it's something where people don't always want to talk about what they're proud of or what they like have achieved, because it's seen as being like sort of full of yourself. But I think that's so silly, because I think you have to be able to sort of call out your achievements, because I feel like that just puts good energy into the world. For if you recognize what you have done, I feel like you can then go on to achieve even more. So I just feel like it's really important to not feel like you're being a show off by saying that you're proud of something that you've achieved. So if you have anything that you are proud of that you've done lately, let me know in the comments down below, because I would love to hear about it. And then my final coffee thought before I move on to my thoughts about Truly Devious is, I feel like when we went into lockdown, I was expecting my skin to be really, really good, because I wasn't really going to be wearing much makeup and stuff. But I actually feel like, although it's quite clear at the moment, it just doesn't feel very like vibrant and bright. And I feel like maybe I'm in need of a little bit of a like skincare mix up, and I need to maybe try some new products or something. So if you have any vegan and cruelty-free skincare products that you recommend and that you think work really well for like brightening the skin, for like sensitive skin as well, let me know in the comments below. I know this is maybe a long shot because this is not a beauty channel in the slightest, but if you do have anything, let me know, because I'm definitely on the lookout for some new products, because I just feel like my skin needs a little bit of a like rejuvenation. I just want it to be a little bit brighter. So that brings me to an end on my coffee thoughts. I hope you enjoyed that. And now on to Truly Devious, which I'm now about 100 pages into. So I'm still like only just at the very beginning of the book, really, in the grand scheme of things, but I am enjoying it so much. This is a book which I think I mentioned is basically about this very elite academy called Ellingham Academy, and our protagonist Stevie has just started at this school at the beginning of the book. And I just think, as boarding schools go, obviously there's so many books written about boarding schools, but I think this one is quite an interesting one because of the concept of how the school came about, and the fact that the tuition is free as long as you manage to get in, but getting in is the big challenge. And it's not necessarily a school focused on specific academic achievements, it's about people being extremely good in one specific area, and then the school's goal is to basically give you all of the resources you need to excel in your area and to achieve what you want to achieve, and to basically learn everything you can about your specific subject matter. So we have people from like all different backgrounds and interests in this school, but our protagonist Stevie is interested in true crime and she wants to be a detective. And so I feel like it's really interesting that this is a school that's kind of based around a very different formula than most schools, and I just think that makes it so interesting. So I'm already loving just the basic premise of the book. And then another thing I'm really enjoying is that this is a dual timeline story, because we have Stevie's present day narrative as she comes to this school to try and learn more about becoming a detective, but we also have a past narrative set in 1936 based around the founder of the school, Albert Ellingham, and his wife and daughter, who were kidnapped and never returned back in the 1930s. And so there's this historical mystery that's sort of come about, and that is kind of like the main reason why Stevie is so interested in this school. And the book kind of changes perspectives constantly between the present and the past tense, and we get to see this insight into what has happened and what has built the school up in the way that it has sort of evolved, and also this present day narrative. And of course I'm sure there's going to be even more mystery, and I think what happens essentially is that the mystery starts to become more and more involved in the present day, because I believe there is a copycat criminal, and the original kidnapper signed their ransom letter Truly Devious, and I think letters start coming up signed Truly Devious in the present day. I haven't actually reached that part yet, but I am very excited to see how these two very like different timelines, in terms of like that one of them is set in the present tense and one of them is from so many years ago, and I'm really excited to see how they kind of like converge. But I am really enjoying it. I like how this is written. This is only the second ever thing I've read by Maureen Johnson, and the first thing I read by her was her story in the Christmassy book Let It Snow, which is 3 short stories by Maureen Johnson, John Green and Lauren Miracle. And as far as I can remember, I did enjoy Maureen Johnson's, but it was just a fluffy Christmas story and there wasn't a huge amount of depth. So I feel like this is going to be really exciting to get a proper insight into her writing style, because this is such an interesting story already, and of course it's part of a trilogy. I think you can also tell that it's part of a trilogy already at this point, just because it's definitely introducing the characters and the plot very slowly, because obviously being part of a trilogy, you have a little bit more time to kind of build up the narrative, build up the world, and obviously in this case, build up the mystery, and it's not so rushed. So I feel like you have a lot of chance to really get to know the characters, which I really like. So those are pretty much all of my thoughts so far on this book, but I'm hoping to get a little bit further through this one today, if possible, because I don't really have much on. I've booked onto a yoga class at lunchtime, so about 12 o'clock, and then for the rest of the day I am actually having a very yoga focused day, because like I said, my next section of yoga teacher training starts next week, and the homework that we were set between these 2 blocks was to come up with 2 45-minute yoga flows. One was to be like a normal speed vinyasa flow, but the class needed to be themed, and then the other one is a slower, more of a like unwind and relax focused flow. So I've been working on them for the past couple of weeks since that last block finished, but I really want to start refining it and making sure that it's like perfect, so that I can kind of practice it for the next week so that it's ready for when I have to teach it next Thursday or Friday. So that's pretty much what I've got on the cards today, and that will probably take up the majority of my day. And then other than that, I'll just be reading and maybe doing some editing. I couldn't decide whether to film a video today, but I think I might just focus on yoga today and then film tomorrow. So cheers. So after that yoga class, I am so ready for a cup of tea, some proper food, and then also, most importantly, one of these cookies, which I can't remember if I showed you after I made them yesterday, but these are so good. I'm literally addicted to cookies right now, and I'm not mad about it, because cookies. Well, I don't know what was going on at the beginning of the week with the cold and rainy and gloomy weather, but that has fully disappeared today, and it is so sunny, which I'm very happy about, because I feel like I can definitely appreciate a couple of like gloomier days, just to have a few days in the house and chill out and just like wind down and relax for a couple of days. But I feel like that gets old very quickly, especially when you are on lockdown and can't really go out anywhere when it's rainy and stuff. So I feel like I'm very glad that the sunny weather has come back. But this morning I have spent most of the day in the conservatory filming some sit-down videos, just because the conservatory is the nicest room in the house in terms of how it looks and the lighting and everything, so that's where I film all of my sit-down videos. But obviously conservatories get so hot when it's sunny outside, so I literally feel like I have been baking alive. And it's so funny because literally just a couple of months ago I would sit in there and leave like almost blue with cold, because they get so cold in winter, but now that it's getting sunnier again, it's literally so hot in there that I feel like I've been sat in an oven for a few hours. So I'm obviously very glad to be back in some summery clothes now that I'm done filming, because I was wearing a jumper this morning and I was boiling hot. So I finished that, done some sit down videos, and I'll be editing them later. But I just got a book delivery. I think I know what it is, but I'll just open it on here just because why not. And it's a little bit different to my usual reads, and it is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Now this is a book that I've heard about many times via quite a few different YouTubers and people that talk about like manifestation and the law of attraction, which is essentially what this book is all about. And it's since come up a couple of times since I've been on my yoga teacher training course, because one of our course leaders, Angela, has mentioned this book a couple of times, and a couple of the other teacher trainees have mentioned it as well. And I just feel like it's come up so many times that I just really want to read it, because I feel like sometimes something pops up quite a few times, and maybe that could be like, you know, a good sign that it's finally time to get around to reading this book. And it's actually a lot shorter than I expected. Essentially, this is considered to be like a spiritual type book, which really focuses on just using the power of your words and actions in order to manifest the kind of life you want to lead. And obviously I feel like I'll be able to give you a lot more thoughts on this after I've actually read it, but I do think it's going to be a really interesting read, because I think manifestation is such an interesting concept, because I do think that words and actions are so powerful. And another thing we've been told on our yoga course is basically that you should be very thoughtful about what your thoughts are, because thoughts become words, which then become actions, which then become your habits. And so understanding how to control the way that we think and the way that we respond to situations is a really powerful tool in eventually creating the life that you really want to lead and creating the dream life for you. And so I feel like it's going to be a very interesting book, and hopefully one that I get a lot from. I'll of course keep you updated, and I'm actually very pleased because I expected it to be a lot longer, but it's actually quite a short read. So I'm going to read this soon, and hopefully it'll be a really good one. But I just thought I'd share that because I'm quite excited to get into this one. I then have also gotten about halfway now into Truly Devious, which is exciting. Really enjoying it, and the part I just finished last night, which is when I last picked this up, I had reached the part where the copycat criminal has started leaving notes for Stevie, our main character. So I'm very interested to see where this leads. Such a classic British person this week with how much I've been talking about the weather, so I do apologise if that has been boring, but this week has just been such a weather roller coaster. It's been all over the place, and I also feel like just in general, since we've been on lockdown, I've been more interested in the weather than I normally would be, because I just feel like it has more of an impact on like what I can actually do with my day, given that we're so limited in where we can go. And obviously nicer days mean that you can spend time in the garden and just feel a little bit less cooped up, and just I feel like it makes me feel a lot more energetic and motivated when we can go outside and enjoy the sun. And today luckily is a super sunny day. It's so bright, and I feel like it's one of the hottest days we've had in a long time, which I'm very happy about, because as you can probably tell, I'm a very pale person, so any kind of like vitamin D I can get and sort of like slight tan I can sort of get my hands on is always good, because my tan, like after 3 weeks abroad in Europe, is still for probably most people very, very pale. But I just have to, you know, take what I can get. And I do like my complexion, but I think having a little bit more vibrancy and vitamin D can be maybe the thing that I need. Like I was mentioning the other day, I feel like my skin has been a little bit dull, and I just feel like maybe that happens at the end of winter when there's been hardly any sun, and I'm hoping that like some summer weather and a little bit more time outside getting some vitamin D might help my skin to brighten up a little bit, even though in reality I'll still be very, very pale. But aside from that, since we came back from our walk earlier, which was lovely because we went to a new bit of a local woods that we'd not sort of explored before, and it was so lovely. I've just been pretty much sat in the garden doing some yoga, like I said, and like some handstands, because I feel like it's so much more fun to do handstands in the garden because you don't have to worry about knocking anything over. And just in general, I love being able to practice yoga outside, because it's something that obviously you can only do for a very limited time in the year, given that we're in the UK and most of the time it's either rainy or cold. But I'm really loving the fact that I can take advantage of as many of the sunny days as possible to do garden yoga now that we're on lockdown, and I'm obviously at home a lot more of the time. And then I've also been doing some more reading of Truly Devious, of course, which is kind of what this vlog is mostly all about. I'm about 250 pages in now, and that means that I've got 200 pages left. And so I'm hoping to set myself the goal, well, I am setting myself the goal of finishing this book today. It's about 4 p.m-ish on Friday afternoon, and I don't really have any plans this evening. I don't have to edit any videos, and so logically I should be able to actually finish this book today if I put my mind to it. And I'm really intrigued to see where the plot goes, because something has just happened which I really didn't see coming, and that I'm very intrigued to see like how it impacts the plot, because it definitely did surprise me, and I sort of didn't even consider that this might be something that could happen. And there goes the sun. Clearly the weather is on its roller coaster again. It was so bright a second ago, and I'm just looking outside and it is now very, very cloudy. But back to the book, I'm really excited to see where it goes. It's a really interesting plot. It's certainly keeping me hooked and intrigued, but I don't think I'm quite as into this book as I expected to be just based on the hype. But granted, I have still got like 200 pages left to read, so there's a chance that it might still really blow me away with how it sort of twists around, and I feel like the proper mystery is kind of only just getting started, and that kind of brings me back again to the fact that this is very clearly part of a larger series, and so the first part of the book really does just set up the characters and the situation, which is absolutely fine, and I am really enjoying it. The one thing I found a little bit odd is the fact that Maureen Johnson's writing style, or in particular her descriptions of characters, just feel a little bit dated to me, in the sense that she seems to be obsessed with t-shirts with like slogans on. Like, so many characters have been described by like so-and-so walked in wearing a t-shirt that said this, and it's like it comes up again and again, and I just think it's a little bit weird and dated, because I feel like maybe that was like a very like noughties thing, but I don't really see many people wearing t-shirts like that anymore. So that's one thing that stuck out as weird, but overall I am enjoying it, and I'll keep you updated with my thoughts this evening, because like I said, I am hoping to finish it today. Just found the creepiest looking tunnel on today's walk, so we're gonna go and explore, but it's so dark, so I feel like, especially after reading Truly Devious, where there's some like really creepy dark tunnels under the school, I'm very intrigued but slightly scared to go in this one. Out alive, but that is such a dark tunnel. I feel like because it goes around a bend, so you can't see the end when you go into it. It's just so dark and very, very creepy. So it's probably no surprise to anyone that after I said yesterday that I wanted to try and finish off Truly Devious yesterday evening, that I actually did a grand total of 0 pages of reading. I did end up just like playing games with Jay and his family in the garden, and the evening just went by so quickly I couldn't even believe it. So I didn't end up finishing this book yesterday evening, but I'm going to say it again, that is my plan for today, and I am really, really hoping to finish it, especially after going through that creepy murder tunnel on our walk today. My desire to read the rest of this murder mystery and get some like dark spooky vibes has definitely been reignited. So it's actually like the perfect weather today, because it's really warm but it's not too sunny, which means that I can read without having to like squint my eyes and end up with wrinkles. And so I've got that book, a cup of tea, and I've basically just set myself up in the garden, and I'm planning to stay out here until I finish this book, so wish me luck.
How many pages you got left?
About 200. Okay, so it's now about 4:30 and I just finished up reading Truly Devious. Funnily enough, even though I obviously had intended to finish this one off last night and then didn't do any reading whatsoever, as soon as I sat down this afternoon to try and get through the last 200 or so pages, I absolutely flew through it because it just got really, really compelling in the second half. I feel like, as is the case in my opinion with a lot of murder mysteries, they do take a little while to warm up because you kind of need to establish all of the facts, and that's kind of what it's all about, with like sort of the reader gets to kind of take the place of the detective and start to figure out what's going on and put all of the puzzle pieces together. And I think that was kind of exacerbated even more in this instance because we have two timelines, and so obviously as readers we go into the book knowing that we have this historical mystery surrounding the founder of the school and his wife and child and another student who were all kidnapped, and there's also some murders going on, so we kind of go in aware of one of the mysteries that we're going to encounter, but then we also have the present day, and I, at least from other people's reviews of this book, kind of understood that there was going to be a copycat criminal coming into the story at some point, but we don't really get introduced to that until about halfway into the book, and so it's kind of like a lot of setting up all of the characters, the situation, and you kind of don't really get warmed up to the story entirely until you're about halfway through, which is absolutely fine because it's obviously part of a trilogy, and of course when you're doing such a sort of well thought out mystery, you want to really make sure that you've set up everything perfectly, so you're sort of dripping in all of these clues. And I particularly liked the way that this book did have the dual timeline, because I think it was really interesting to see how the information we were being given in the historical mystery in the 1930s timeline was kind of like feeding into how the storyline in the present day narrative was sort of playing out. And I just thought that was really, really interesting way to go about sort of building up this secondary copycat mystery, which I just thought was really cool. Now overall, I did end up giving this book 3 stars, and I did really enjoy it, but I feel like in terms of being a mystery, it wasn't a very fulfilling one, and I think that is entirely down to the fact that this is going to be part of a trilogy. So by the time we get to the end of this book, we've got a few extra clues and we're starting to figure out what's going to happen and maybe how everything is starting to connect, but you don't actually get any kind of real conclusion or like solving of the mystery, and it's very much leading on to the next book, and we actually just get hit with a brand new mystery and a brand new sort of like spanner in the entire situation at the very end of the book. So rather than solving it, it actually just presents more and more questions. And of course, it's part of a trilogy, which is fine, and I am definitely going to continue on with it, and I have a feeling that once we start finding out more information in the other ones, they'll probably be more likely to be like 4-star reads rather than 3, but I just felt like with this one it was definitely more of a setup situation and we don't really get as much of a satisfying conclusion. But nevertheless, I did really enjoy it. I think, like I said, having the dual timelines and seeing how they sort of complemented one another was a really clever way to go about building up this mystery. And I also really liked how this book is actually one that I was picking up to read for the mental health-a-thon, which is a readathon during May, because this book deals with anxiety, because Stevie, our main character, deals with anxiety, and I thought the way that that was sort of just built into the plot and built into her as a character rather than being the primary focus of the book was just really well done. It sort of explored the issues of like panic attacks. It also explored medication as a way of dealing with anxiety, and also like therapy as well. And I just think the way that it dealt with all of those different things and built it into Stevie as a character and sort of helped you to understand how she viewed the world and how her experiences of anxiety would affect how she interacts in certain situations, which is really interesting. And I thought that it sort of gave that a really good sort of representation in my opinion, and I just really, really enjoyed how that was built into the story as well. I was very interested to find out though that a lot of the things that it did mention to do with anxiety therapy seemed very, very similar to things that I've been learning about in my yoga philosophy lessons in my yoga teacher training, which I thought was interesting. And in particular, there was a bit where it said, I don't know if I tabbed that page, but essentially it just said that something that she learnt in anxiety therapy was that the thoughts will keep coming, but you don't need to chase after all of them. And that seemed very, very similar in my opinion to what we get taught in yoga teacher training, and particularly in reference to like meditation and the pursuit of enlightenment, is basically that you have to kind of learn to train your attention not to focus on the thoughts that keep coming in, and you have to sort of get like more control and learn to manage where your attention goes. So I thought it was interesting that that was something that this book dealt with in terms of anxiety, because of course it does make sense, but I've never experienced anxiety related therapy before, so I had only ever come across it in the context of in my yoga teacher training, but I just thought that was interesting how that crossed over. And then funnily enough, this book also did deal a lot with anatomy, which was because Stevie wanted to go to this academy to become a detective and work for the FBI, so she needed to understand about the human body and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of the language in there is also very similar to the anatomy training and learning that I've been doing in yoga teacher training as well. So I did not go into this murder mystery book expecting it to be similar to things I'd been learning about in yoga teacher training, but that was a fun surprise as well. So overall, I did really enjoy this book. It was an interesting read. I'm glad that I finally ticked it off my TBR because it's one that I've been intending to get to for a long time. It wasn't necessarily the most mind-blowing book ever, but I can really see how in terms of being a murder mystery trilogy, this book was kind of like the first building block in terms of giving you all the information that you need to then go on to the next books in the series. And I am really excited to read the second book in the series, which is called The Vanishing Stair, and hopefully get a little bit more of a satisfying mystery conclusion and just continue on with the series and see where it all goes. So without further ado, it's currently Saturday afternoon and I'm going to finish off this weekly reading vlog here and start up next week's vlog with a new book later on. So I feel like this one has been a bit of a weird week because it feels like it's been super long, but also I don't really feel like I've done all that much except for reading and yoga, but to be honest, what's even new there? So I hope you enjoyed hearing all of my thoughts on Truly Devious. If you've read this book, which I'm sure a lot of you have because it's very, very popular and I was very late to the hype, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and we can see if you had similar experiences to me and if you were also a little bit frustrated with how like unsatisfactory the conclusion was. But yeah, I'm excited to continue on with the series, so thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.